Have you spent time with your Creator today? Hi, I'm Ronald, and I break down and discuss the Bible. And today I'm continuing in the book of Leviticus, and I'm going to be completing the chapters 14 and 15. Now, I broke down these two chapters as there are so many details in these procedures, which can often be confusing. But at the same time, there is so much depth, symbolism, and meaning behind every step involved, all to provide a picture of how sin manifests and grows if left unchecked. Here the Lord sets up precise rituals to free them from sin and to cleanse them. Beginning in chapter 14 was all about leprosy and the procedures for cleaning individuals once diagnosed with the condition. The next part of this chapter describes the procedure for cleansing houses contaminated with mold. This procedure is as follows. The house owner reports the contamination to the priest, who then orders the house to be cleared before examining it. If the contamination is found, the house is quarantined for 7 days, and if the contamination spreads, the affected stones are removed and the house is scraped and replastered. If the contamination reappears, the house is declared unclean and must be torn down. But if the contamination does not spread, the house is pronounced clean after a purification ritual, like the ceremony for the person healed from leprosy. Remember that? One bird is killed over fresh water, and a sprig of hyssop and cedar branches were tied to a live bird with scarlet yarn. Then the priest dipped the hyssop, cedar, and the bird's tail in the blood and water, and then waved or sprinkled the blood on the person, or in this case on the house, 7 times before releasing the bird. The meaning behind this ceremony is that it symbolizes cleansing and restoration. The killed bird represented a blood sacrifice, while the released bird symbolized freedom from sin and restoration of the relationship with God. Now, mold and leprosy were both seen as punishment from God and were contagious and destructive, symbolizing sin. Cleansing required significant physical improvements, and a symbolic ceremony followed. Just as moldy stones and leprosy victims were removed from their environment until cleansed, the tribes of Israel and Judah were removed from their homeland due to sin. Restoration occurred after repentance, which we will discuss in the upcoming chapters. Chapter 15 addresses the laws regarding bodily discharges and their associated uncleanliness. The details may be a bit more appropriate for a mature audience, so please be aware if you have young children nearby. Thank you. 15:1-3, And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When any man has a discharge from his body, his discharge is unclean, and this shall be his uncleanliness in regard to his discharge, whether his body runs with his discharge or his body is stopped up by his discharge. It is his discharge. It is his uncleanliness. When any man has a discharge from his body, his discharge is unclean. Now, the idea here is that some abnormal genital discharge indicating some type of disease. When this occurs, the man is to be somewhat isolated so as not to pass on the infection to anyone else. Now, this refers to an abnormal fluid that comes out of the male sexual organ because of some kind of sickness. Bible commentator Rooker writes that the exact nature of this discharge is not stated, although most frequently suggested opinion is that it refers to gonorrhea. In contrast to the previous chapters regarding the broad definition of leprosy, there is no mention of priestly inspection or monitoring in this case. This was done by the individual and supported by the culture's expectation. Now, the unclean status did not completely remove the unclean one from the community. It restricted them and required a ceremonial purification when the infection was gone. So a man with a discharge is considered unclean, and anything that he touches, including beds or furniture, becomes unclean. Anyone who touches these items must wash their clothes and bathe with water. Now, when the man is cured, he must count 7 days for his cleansing, wash his clothes, and bathe in fresh water. And on the 8th day, he brings 2 turtle dove or 2 young pigeon to the priest for a sin offering and a burnt offering. Now, beginning in verse 19, describes bodily discharges from women, both regular menstruation and other discharges. In the case of a bloody discharge from a woman, her normal menstruation, Her ceremonial impurity could be spread through direct contact or through an object that she lay or sat upon. The woman's ceremonial impurity lasted 7 days, and no specific washing is commanded at the end of the seventh day, but it was implied or considered unnecessary. Verse 24, if any man lies with her, a man who had sex with a woman during her days of normal menstruation was also unclean 7 days, following the course of the woman's uncleanliness. The man made unclean could spread his uncleanliness through contact. Every bed on which he lies shall be unclean. Now, the avoidance of sexual intercourse during menstruation was later mentioned in Ezekiel 18:6 as evidence of a righteous man. As an aspect of the law given to Israel under the Old Covenant, under the New Covenant, this is no longer binding on Christians. Whatever other reasons there may be for avoiding intercourse during menstruation, yet a principle behind this command is universal for every Christian and even every person. God commands sexual restraint. The command forced the obedient Israelite man or woman to say no to their sexual desires in certain situations. This does not mean that God restricts sex itself or regards sex itself as inherently sinful or impure, but it does mean that the sexual ethic of it, if it feels good, do it, is an ungodly and destructive approach. The principle of sexual restraint is often stated in the New Testament. The mere presence of both desire and opportunity does not mean that a sexual act is obedient or pure before God. Significantly, the Apostle Paul made a close connection between uncleanliness and sexual immorality as seen in 2 Corinthians 12:21, Ephesians 5:3, Colossians 3:5, and other passages. The laws in Leviticus that address bodily discharges and their associated uncleanliness emphasize the importance of community health and hygiene. Modern practices such as quarantine, isolation, and sanitation measures during outbreaks of infectious diseases reflect these ancient principles. Public health campaigns and education also play a crucial role in promoting hygiene and preventing the spread of diseases. We just lived through COVID. I'm going to leave it here for today. Thank you so much for watching. I pray that our God and Father bless you and all of your loved ones, and I wish you a great day. See you next time.